The Bleach Rebirth the Soul's launch day experience was a bit rough, mainly for all the homies on PC. But after playing this game for 15 hours straight, right from launch, I think Rebirth the Souls is incredibly fun and has the potential to go really far, if the devs play their cards right. So let's talk about the 10 changes that I think this game needs to succeed and reach its full potential. And make sure you stay to the end to find out the next step that all the things I'm about to mention are dependent on. The first and most obvious thing that Bleach Rebirth the Souls needs is a fix for the PC port. A lot of the players who bought this game on PC weren't actually able to play the game on launch day, since they were experiencing everything from character models not loading in, to constant crashes, to not even being able to launch the game. As a result, a number of people from the PC side of the community were incredibly frustrated with the way this game was released, and it's clear that it left a bad taste in their mouths. In order to make up for the mistakes that were made and get back on these players' good side, the dev team needs to drop a patch that fixes the PC port and adds some sort of compensation for the players that were affected as soon as possible. But fear not, the devs have mentioned on social media that they're working on a fix for these issues, so it could be fixed at any time now. Now that we can actually talk about features inside the game, let's talk about the next change, which is expanding training mode. It's clear that the dev's vision for Rebirth of Souls is for it to be competitive, and you can feel it when you go into training mode. We have a frame data / move history section on the left, which is pretty simple, but gets the job done. It also has training dummy recording, a section for keeping track of combo damage, and a whole bunch of training settings similar to a traditional 2D or 3D fighting game. The only thing I want is for them to expand it a little bit. The main thing is for them to add more detail to the frame data section and separate it from the input history. I'd love to see something similar to what we have in Street Fighter 6, so we can take a deeper look at this game's moves and how they function. But while we're on the topic of training mode, there's one more feature that I'd like to see fixed, and that's the reset button. When you hit reset in training mode, it doesn't fully reset back to how things were at the beginning of the match. So for example, if I'm labbing Shinji and I awaken his Sakanade, and I press reset, the game doesn't take me back to before I had Sakanade awakened. And the only way that I found to reset him is to go back to character select and choose him again. It also doesn't reset your meters either. So I either have to wait for them to reset by themselves, or I have to go into my training settings, set reverse gauge to fast reload, and spiritual power to infinite, and reset them manually. This is a pretty minor complaint, but it's pretty annoying when I'm trying to lab realistic combos with limited resources. That means every time I drop the combo, I have to go back into my settings again to refill my meters. And that can be pretty irritating considering I should just be able to do it by hitting my touchpad. But training mode isn't the only area of this game that needs some quality of life changes, so let's talk about how lobbies can be improved. At the time of recording, which is day 2 of the game being out, lobbies can only hold a max of 2 people and there are no spectator functions. I don't really think I need to explain to you why this has to change. However, aside from the missing features I just mentioned, the lobbies function pretty well. There have been a few times when people have trouble finding my lobby, and for some reason when someone leaves, it listed at the bottom left like 100 times, but there's not much else to complain about outside of some quality of life changes and bug fixes. A more obvious but essential thing that this game needs is ranked play. Before you tear me limb from limb in the comment section, I'm aware that the files for ranked play have been data mined and that it's coming at some point. I just had to mention it. From what I've heard around the community, it's speculated that the devs avoided releasing the game with ranked play to prevent the situation that players were facing with JJK Curse Clash, where ranked inflation was a big problem. All I ask is that ranked play is released in a timely manner and only after PC players are able to play the game comfortably so everyone can start playing ranked around the same time. But ranked matches won't be the best that they can be without the addition of rollback netcode. I think at this point in time, any serious fighting game that's coming out needs to have rollback. We're in the big 25 now, and having fighting games released without rollback is beyond me. Now don't get me wrong, Rebirth of Souls' current netcode isn't terrible, but if you're fighting an opponent with less than 3 bars online, you're gonna encounter some pretty hefty lag. Another feature that I think this game absolutely needs is crossplay. Even though making games cross-platform seems like a given in the year 2025, I understand why dev teams will want to leave it out. With players being able to go into the game's config files and cheating programs being very easily accessible on PC, a lot of games that are playable on both PC and console face issues with cheaters. However, with crossplay missing, finding matches online, at least for now, is a bit difficult, and players don't have a way to join their friends who play on different platforms. If the devs find a way to prevent a cheater problem, I'd love to see crossplay be added in the near future, and I think the vast majority of the player base would as well. However, getting into the actual gameplay, the game feels pretty slow. So what can be done to make the game feel a bit more fast-paced? I think a good place to start is increasing damage across the cast, especially for characters like Yoruichi who are more speed-oriented. Now don't get it confused, I love that Bleach Rebirth of Souls is a game that doesn't feel like you die from getting too touched, but it feels like a lot of characters do very minimal damage and take a long time to get through the opponent's Reishi bar even with long combos, and as a result, matches take a very long time to finish. I think increasing damage for everybody would fix match length, make the game feel more fast-paced, and cause combos to feel more rewarding all around. Another thing that would help combat feel more fast-paced and exciting is access to more reverse meter. Aside from the Konpaku system, the reverse gauge is a key part of the gameplay in Rebirth of Souls and adds a ton of options that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. The only problem is it feels too slow to build, which makes offense feel super limited when you don't have any resources. You start each match with a full reverse gauge, but after you use it for a flash step or a reverse action, it feels like it takes forever to get it back. But this is very easily remedied. The devs could either make the reverse gauge build faster passively and during combat, or just give us more of it and very easily fix the feeling of barely being able to use it. And in turn, it would offer more offensive and defensive options, expand combo potential, and overall just make playing the game more exciting while adding even more depth. And while we're on the topic of depth, I think there needs to be more of a distinction between advanced controls and simple controls. If you didn't already know, the key difference between the two control schemes is that standard adds an automatic Hakugeki after you do your light and flash auto combos. Other than that, they're basically the same. I'd like to see the devs step away from auto combos with advanced and give us more freedom in exchange for choosing the more difficult button scheme. In this game, you get a lot of hits per pressing only a few buttons, like when you use a flash step follow-up for example. Making it so you have to do these manually would allow for more combo routes and would make hitting your opponent feel a lot more rewarding. There just really isn't that much of a difference between the two control schemes, which I'm not really a fan of. But like I said in the intro, these 10 things don't matter at all if the devs don't do one simple thing, and that's listen to the community. We see it all too often that some game developers just completely ignore the complaints and concerns of their player base. Each of the 10 things I just mentioned are not just my own complaints from playing, but things that I've seen echoed in my own community and by other players across the internet. Which means that all the devs need to do is stay connected to the player base of this game, take our concerns into consideration, and make the right changes going forward. As a longtime Bleach fan, I really want to see this game do well and have a long lifespan. And it can, as long as the right changes are made. This could really be a game that hits the FGC and grows a really great competitive scene. There's just a few improvements that need to be made. If you enjoyed the video or agreed with any of the changes that I mentioned, make sure to like and subscribe so you can become a card-carrying member of the Seb Syndicate. And let me know in the comments what sort of changes that you want to see for Bleach Rebirth of Souls going forward. Thanks so much for watching.